Okay, hello everybody. My name's Mike Lanza. That's my email address, and my website, www.playborhood.com, didn't make the cut here, so it's somewhere down here. But I'm going to talk about neighborhood play every day. Just one kind of one comment I have, I guess, from seeing all the sessions earlier today. I often speak, and I'm writing a blog, and I'm writing a book, and it's really mostly directed at parents, and trying to help parents figure out, how do we do this? How do we make a life of play and freedom for our children after it's pretty much disappeared from American society? And so what I have to talk about is really how people do it themselves. So I'm only going to talk about government, institutions, and nonprofits insofar as how to get them out of there. Because really this is about people taking control of their own lives and the lives of their children. It's not to say that nonprofits and governments are not relevant, but this is really about people in their own lives. And it's a different perspective that I hope you get something out of. So just having sort of an opening, I'd like to start with kind of a manifesto that I've written. Please come in. I want my kids to play outside with other neighborhood kids every day. I want them to create their own games and rules. I want them to play big, complex games with large groups of kids, and simpler games one-on-one with a best friend. I want them to decide for themselves what to play, where, and with whom. I want them to settle their own disputes with their friends. I want them to create their own private clubs with secret rules. I want them to make lasting physical artifacts that show the world that this is their place. I want them to laugh and run and think every day. That's what I had. It's my standard for a good childhood. It's my goal for my kids. And so this has been a sort of a quest for me that started almost 7 years ago now, when my first son was born. And I started blogging on Playborhood.com about 4 years ago. It's expanded. It's become this really large quest to try to help childhood throughout the United States. I've gone to many different communities, not only my own, but it starts with a personal journey to try to figure out, looking around at childhood today and children's lives, how can we? To me, I'm not happy with children's lives. I'm not happy that they're either locked inside their homes or they're out somewhere else outside of their neighborhoods in adult-led activities, adult-managed activities. They have no zone of independence in their lives. They have no autonomy, no self-reliance in their lives. And that's something I want to bring back for my children and for other children. So I just have a couple questions. I'd like to see a show of hands. Do kids in your neighborhood play outside every day or every other day, many times a week? We've got a couple, got a few. That's great. Mostly no. And for those of you who didn't raise your hand, do you think it's possible? You think it's possible today in this day and age? Well, my promise to you, my contract to you is I want to show you that it's possible, and I want to show you how to make it happen. I believe very much in both those things. I believe that it's very possible. I've seen it. I've made it happen in my community to some extent, as we still have a ways to go. Sarah is from my neighborhood in Menlo Park. I want to show you sort of lots of examples to give you an idea that this is not an old idea. So I'm going to, the agenda for my talk is in 3 parts. I'm going to talk about the problem very briefly, just to sort of set the stage, define the problem. Then I'll give you some inspiring stories throughout the United States, including my neighborhood in Menlo Park. And then I'll give you some solutions, a list of solutions, kind of almost a checklist for parents, if you will. The problem is, fundamentally is that, as I said before, that children are either inside, the statistics are mind-boggling. Children are between 8 and 18, according to the Kaiser Family Foundation, consuming about 8 hours of digital media every day. 8 hours. So they go to school for 7 hours, they sleep for 8 hours, there's no time. I don't know what they're doing, other than watching TV, playing video games, going on the internet, tweeting, they don't tweet so much, they're more on Facebook, and going to school and sleeping, that's it. And it's actually somewhat class-based. There's a difference in classes. The affluent kids tend to do that a little bit less. They tend to do a fair amount. They tend to participate in organized activities, adult-led activities. Use soccer, piano classes, all sorts of enrichment classes, summer camps during the summer. what they're not doing is they don't have any independent life. They don't have any time where they're actually doing things on their own that they want to do, especially outdoors. I mean, they do this on their own. But parents tend to leave their kids in front of the TV set or in front of the computer, but they don't let them alone outside. So that's the fundamental problem as I see it. The major point I want to make about this is it's a social problem. And there's a lot of, people here are all into the sort of the social good and social entrepreneurship. For parents, they don't get this. It's a very fundamental notion. Because what they do when they see this problem, they say, okay, we're going to limit you to 1 hour of TV a day. Or we're going to stop that extra class, that dance class. You don't need that dance class, you don't like it anyway. In other words, we're going to limit all these things that you have in your life that are cluttering your life up. What's the problem with that? The problem is, let's say you cut off TV, you cut off the computer, you cut off video games. Yeah, they walk outside, there's nothing going on. There's nothing going on. It's fundamentally a social problem, and it has to be, there is a component to it that is individual. If your family has, the TV on all the time, then your kids are never going to go outside, they're never going to be attracted. But on the other hand, you've got to make those an individual choices, individual solutions in concert with a community solution, a social solution to the problem. And I'm going to be talking a lot about the social solution today. So the problem frame that I like to use, there's a lot of ways to frame it. You can say kids watch too much TV, kids play too many video games, kids are too scheduled. That's an individual approach to the problem. And your solution would be, okay, there are all these things that kids love to do, let's restrict them. That seems like a Soviet era kind of approach. Let's restrict things that people like. Let's keep them from doing things they want to do. I don't think that's a great solution as the total solution. So what I'm more interested in doing is making the alternative more attractive. The neighborhood, making the neighborhood an attractive place, making it a place that people actually want to be. And that's really what Playborhood, a lot of what Playborhood is all about, is making the neighborhood a competitor in this marketplace or this competition for children's attention. Children, when they have some free time, they think, do I want to play my video game? Do I want to go on Facebook? Do I want to schedule another activity because I have too much free time? Or do I want to go outside and see what's going on? Today, it's no competition at all. They're not going to go outside because there's hardly any chance there's something interesting that is going to engage them. What I'm trying to do, what a lot of the communities around the United States are trying to do, is make the neighborhood a really interesting place. So that's what I'm going to talk about. So I'm going to start with some inspiring stories. I hope inspiring stories. One is my road in Menlo Park, and Sarah's she's the truth police. She can say if I'm exaggerating at all. I'll talk about Lyman Place in the South Bronx, which is, Menlo Park is a pretty affluent area. South Bronx is just the opposite. Sherrod Square in Portland, The Waters, which is a new urbanist community in Alabama, and N Street, which is a co-housing community in Davis, California. So I'll start with Yale Road, and by the way, I have a lot more slides of Yale Road where I live, because I know a lot about it, and I have a lot of photos, and I don't have to get anybody to sign permissions to put the photos up, because it's my kids. Actually, that's my neighbor's kids over there. But one thing you notice about Yale Road is we've got a nice wide road. It's not a cul-de-sac, but we're on it all the time. We use it. There's not a lot of cars, so that's kind of nice. But we claim that road. That is part of our space. This is a lot of what I'm going to talk about with Yale Road is the physical environment. That's one aspect of what we've done. We've done a lot of social engineering as well, knocking on doors, getting people to come outside. But for these slides, I'm going to talk about how we've changed the physical environment to make it a place, a hangout where kids want to be. So this is our front yard, and there's a lot you can't see, and unfortunately the brightness isn't making some of this stuff pop. But I'm going to get into some of the details of our front yard. Basically, we've changed pretty much every square meter of our front yard in our backyard to make it a place where kids want to hang out, where kids want to be. And in suburban America, everywhere, but the suburbs is really blatant. You drive down the street, street after street after street, house after house after house. You never see anything that looks inviting. You actually want to spend some time there. It's all pretty bushes and flowers and driveways. Well, we've made our yard into a place where kids really want to hang out, and adults too. So first of all, this is the picnic table in our front yard. So we have a picnic table with large storage benches about 10 feet from the sidewalk. This is my wife. This is my wife here. She's Chinese, so all my in-laws are Chinese. We have, you know, right next door to us over there is a Jewish doctor. He comes over a lot and he has a glass of wine with us when we have family gatherings. Kids are, when we're having dinners outside, kids will start playing in the driveway. Kids walking down the street will come over, they'll start playing. It's amazing how much different a family dinner can be if it's out front rather than in the backyard or inside the house. And you might think, oh my God, this is an invasion of my privacy. We have an amazing time. It's really, really fun. This is really the center of our social life in summer. This is, and Sarah's daughter's in this picture. I think her back, no, she's right over here, but you can't see her. This is a fountain we have. It's literally a foot away from the sidewalk. I bought the fountain so the kids would put their hands in it. So the dogs would walk up and lick. And guess what? It happens all the time. Everybody who walks by, every little kid, every dog pretty much, has got to get their hands in this fountain. So it kind of draws people in, which is what we want. This is a whiteboard we have along the right side of the property line, and we just keep pens out there in a box. So kids are coming up there. It goes up and down, ebbs and flows. My dream is that someday we'll have kind of a physical wall, just like the wall on Facebook or MySpace walls, where kids will walk up and write little messages to each other. Right now, my kids are too young to do that. By the way, I'm a father of 3 boys, almost 7, 3.5, and almost 2. Sandbox on the other side. So this will be on the left side of our driveway. It's about 10 feet from the sidewalk. Again, we tell neighbors, please come over anytime and use the sandbox, and they do. It's taken some time for some people to get used to the idea, but we've got people coming over, kids using the sandbox all the time, and I plant, I bought coins by the kilo, foreign coins. You know, there's a lot of defunct republics now. There's, you know, all the old Soviet republics and, you know, all the euro, the coins that, you know, from Italy and Spain and France. Those are kind of useless now, so there's a lot of coins that look good but aren't actually worth anything. So I've got them planted all in here. And so kids come over all the time and they'll pick out these coins and they go home with them. It's easy. It's really fun. We've got a lot of public art in our front yard. One thing is a neighborhood map. It's hard to see in this picture, but this is the grid of our neighborhood, and it's of a scale so that kids can make Legos at each plot. So they can find where their land is, they can build, and we've started to do this, but we're going to do a lot more this summer. This was just completed a couple weeks ago. And the roads are of a size that you can put matchboxes, Hot Wheels, and you know, it works on that road. It's sort of HO scale if you know about model railroading. We've also got some public art on the other side. This is a new feature that we're going to have in 2 or 3 weeks. So come by and see that. We're going to have a river. For kids, there's an organization in San Francisco called Riveropolis. They do these kids' rivers, and it's going to be out there all the time. You know, not necessarily just for my kids, but anybody who walks by who wants to play in the river. Our backyard is pretty spectacular too. I'll dig into that a little bit. We've got a playhouse with 2 floors and a slide in the front and a slide in the back, and lots of fun. This is a really hard picture to see, but this is the inside of the playhouse on the 2nd floor, and kids have, this is only in 2 years, have scrawled graffiti everywhere, absolutely everywhere. It's really wonderful, really interesting to see what the things they've written. And we have amazing events, amazing parties, amazing get-togethers a few times a week. Sometimes it seems like every day. This is a really fun party we had a few years ago. We have an in-ground trampoline. The in-ground trampoline is much safer, much more social, much more fun for kids than an above-ground trampoline. Kids can just run from the lawn right to the trampoline, run off the trampoline. Parents, we have these beanbag couches, can just sit with a glass of wine and watch their kids. But I'll tell you what happens usually is parents get on the trampoline and they take over. This happened quite a bit. It's a lot of fun. And I just want to, I guess the next slide I just want to say, you're probably looking at all this and you're thinking, oh my God, this guy's spending a lot of money. This has no relevance to anybody's life. Well, here's the inside of our house. This is a couch that we bought. We haven't bought any furniture in 10 years. Probably about 12 years, actually. We haven't bought any furniture. We don't have anything on the walls other than pictures of us that I printed on my own printer. We have some maps. This is a couch that we bought. It's kind of a crappy, cheapo couch a few years ago, about 10 years ago. And one of the legs started wobbling. So I just took the legs off. So now we've got a couch sitting on the floor with no legs. So we're spending nothing on the inside of our house. So you might think, oh my God, this guy's spending way too much. This is irrelevant. I'm talking about priorities and proportion here, okay? To us, the outside of our house is where we want our kids to be. And so we want to have neighbors come over, not only invited, but uninvited. We want people just to show up. We want it to be a serendipitous kind of feeling, and that's the kind of thing we're doing in our neighborhood. And it can happen, and I'll show you other neighborhoods where it's happening as well. We also go to our creek, so that we have a creek a couple blocks down the street. Times like this, when we've had a lot of rain, there's water in it. That's my son Marco. I'm actually in the background there. And then in the summer, it's dry. And so that's my son Nico, and that's a little girl who lives up the street. We build little houses. They build little houses out of rocks. We paint them with organic paint. We paint the rocks with organic paint. We have amazing, amazing nature experiences in the creek. And my 6-year-old is almost 7. Now actually, I hope there aren't any child predators in here. There aren't that many of them around actually, but they go down there on their own. So this is not something that just for me. My son, who's 6.5, and another kid who's 7, another kid who's 9, they go down there on their own. And then they come back in an hour or 2. It's okay. It's really great. Now I'm going to switch gears and talk about a couple other communities. This is Lyman Place. For those of you who may not be totally familiar, the South Bronx is it's a really rough place in New York City. It is, at least statistically, the poorest congressional district in the United States. Another statistic is that 49% of children live below the poverty line. So this is, this is about as, if you want to draw a contrast to Menlo Park, this is about as good a contrast as you can get. Hetty Fox is an amazing, amazing activist. She's lived there almost her whole life. She was born and raised there, and then she moved away to go to college, and she was a teacher in a college in California, down in Northridge, and then she decided to come back and save her neighborhood when Bronx was burning. The Bronx was burning back in the 70s. And for the past, since 1970, so it's been about 40, 41 years, she's been doing everything she can to bring her neighborhood together. And what's shown here is the play street. So in New York City, it is possible to petition through the city of New York to block off a street for some period through the summer. For her, it's Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. She blocks off Lyman Place. And the feeling on Lyman Place is amazing. It is one of the most warm and caring, loving places that you can go to. And it's in a neighborhood, it's in a part of the United States that most people think is a battle zone. Yeah, I guess crime is somewhat higher around Lyman Place, but Lyman Place itself is amazingly tranquil, amazingly friendly, amazingly warm. It's because of the work of Hetty. She does the play street. She's also fought for many people to stay in their buildings and their homes because there's a lot of evictions, forced evictions that are happening. But her priority is keeping long-term residents there and keeping families together. So there are kids. I'll show you this kid here, Jacob. Jacob's a remarkable kid on the left there. He's 2 years old. He's got an extended family of somewhere, I think we counted 12 to 15 people who live right on his street. So he's got his grandmother there. He's got some aunts and uncles. He's got 2 guys who claim to be his grandfather, but that's disputed in the neighborhood. He's got some cousins. I'll tell you a little story about Jacob. I was there one day last summer, and he had just turned 2. His birthday had just passed, and I took this picture on that day. I was very impressed. I have a 2-year-old myself, and this kid was scootering around, and he was, very content, and he was going around playing with different people, and so one person would hug him, and then he'd play with these other kids, and I thought, boy, this kid's really got it together, and so I started just watching him for a while. Then I turned to Hetty, and I said, Hetty, Jacob's amazing. He's great. I said, but is there anybody watching him here? She looked around. She said, no, not right now, really. I'd been there for a couple hours. And what I found out was that Jacob, very often, like that day, doesn't have anybody in particular looking after him. He comes out of his house. His mother lets him out the door. He comes out. He comes on his scooter. He comes up the street. But he's got he's got a cousin here, he's got an aunt there, Hetty's out there as well. This is really, it takes, this, you've heard the expression, it takes a village to raise a child. Lyman Place, I'm telling you. Because Hetty has kept these extended families together, it's incredible. Because she's created this Play Street atmosphere where kids can just go out, play during the summer, every summer, and it's been going on. By the way, she's been doing the Play Street for 34 years. This year will be 35 years. So his mother, LaDavia, she went through the Play Street program as well. She grew up on the street, and she grew up playing on the Play Street every day in the summer. And now Jacob's doing the same thing. It's really a great story. So Lyman Place is the first recipient of the PPS Place and Play Grassroots Fund, very long term. But I worked with Playborhood and the Project for Public Spaces to create a fund for grassroots community projects like Play Streets. We do training. We also provide some funding. So Lyman Place has gotten some funding for some equipment that they use there. There's another Play Street in New York that we've done that for as well, in Jackson Heights in Queens. We haven't really branched out outside of New York yet. But this is a new fund, a relatively new fund, that I'm very excited about. So now I'm going to switch to another community. This is Sherritt Square in Portland. Sherritt Square is the corner, it's in the southeast part of Portland, at the corner of Sherritt Avenue and Southeast 9th. You look on the map, there's over 1,000 intersections like this in Portland. But you go to this one, there's this amazing mandala, this amazing design on the street, painted on the street. And every corner has got some collection of public installations, public facilities. What these people have done is they've said, we're not going to look for somebody else to help us out. We're going to take over our intersection. We're going to make it into a public piazza. And so the driving force behind this is a guy named Mark Lakeman. You may have heard of the organization City Repair in Portland. Absolutely amazing organization for taking over public spaces and making them into quasi-public private spaces. So this mandala gets repainted once a year by the community. There's 1 week right around Memorial Day, I guess it just happened, where kids and parents and other adults, they go out and they paint the mandala in the middle of the street. I think I'll show a picture. Well, here's a couple other installations. That's Mark. They have a book exchange station, so you can take a book that you don't want anymore and you grab a book that you want. They have another exchange station, which I don't think I have a picture of. You can take old clothes, other things, and take something out that you want. This is a solar-powered tea station, and it's totally maintained by people who live there. There's no official organization, it's just people who live there who informally get together and decide this is something that we want to support, this is something we want to maintain. This is the Kids Clubhouse. So the Kids Clubhouse, and I sat there and watched people walk by a couple different days when I was there. Kids go there. Kids, sometimes with parents, sometimes not. And these toys are always out there. So this is a city block, okay? And these toys are always sitting out there. Now sometimes someone will take something, but for the most part, this has been going on for over 10 years. The toys stay there. And it's just totally organic from the people. This was the first place that City Repair, Mark actually did this, and he lives in that neighborhood. He did this with his neighbors. Now the City Repair, the organization, has made other intersections, they call them intersection repairs, in many other intersections in Portland. And they've also done other things like the things I've shown you. Really an amazing, it's a great place to go if you're interested in public architecture that is totally grassroots driven. And this is a picture of kids painting the mandala in the middle of the street. Kids and parents and adults. It's something that the whole community participates in once a year. Not only painting, but building these different installations that I showed you, or making new ones. It's a big citywide event every year. It's called the Village Building Convergence. So now I want to talk about another community in Alabama. Who's heard of New Urbanism? People of you have heard of New Urbanism, so you know what New Urbanism is. New Urbanism is a school of architecture and urban planning that is aimed at, I may bastardize it a little bit, but essentially it's aimed at creating a sense of community where people live and enabling people to have pretty much everything they need, or most things they need, within a walkable distance. So this is an aerial view and of the first village in the Waters. The Waters is close to Birmingham, Alabama. It's kind of hard to tell unless I really drill in and show you, but basically the idea is that everything is within a 5-minute walk. And so there's a retail center right down there. There's a dentist's office. There's a little grocery store, a restaurant. There's a health club. There's some offices for people who want to work close to home. And then there's recreational facilities all the way around. So everything's within a 5-minute walk. The streets are narrow. There's no back fences. There are porches on every house. So, you know, this place really has the architectural feeling that of being inviting people to be outside and inviting people to commune. And in fact, I was a little skeptical before I went there, but in fact, people own the streets. People own the sidewalks. They're out, and it's impossible to walk down the street without striking up a conversation within a couple minutes, even for a stranger like me who was there. You see a lot of scenes like this. This is reminiscent of our childhoods. This happens every day at the Waters. Baseball games on the street. And you know, throwing a little a kiddie pool in like the public square. Really, really lots of fun. This is the restaurant at a corner of that retail district I showed you before on the map. And one thing to notice is there's a little boy running across the street unattended with no shoes on. I mean, that's the kind of place it is. Parents have told me stories about how, you know, on typical weekend days, when it's nice outside, they just hang out outside, and then one of the parents says, hey, I'll host lunch, and everybody goes over there for lunch. And then the kids are playing, they go to the pool, and then they say, hey, let's have dinner. And they go to someone's house for dinner. It's very spontaneous, very flowing. It's the way childhood should be, and it's the way the family life should be, I think, rather than this regimented, planned, structured life that most parents are caught in these days. And by the way, the Waters, it's the kind of place, even me, I was there for 2 days, where you walk up and you're immediately talking to somebody, you're immediately pulling up a chair, sitting next to somebody. And during the summers, when it's nice out, people are sitting there drinking wine and beer all night. It's a big informal kind of, it's like a Cheers. It's a place where you want to hang out. It's a place where you're gonna go there, you're gonna see someone you want to talk to, and you're gonna talk to them. Very nice. N Street is in Davis. It is a co-housing community. It's a special term, retrofit co-housing community, because it did not start out as a co-housing community. It started out as a normal neighborhood. So this is N Street. If you go back this way, there's M, and there's L, and there's K. So it's basically, you know, right in the alphabetical order. I think there's probably an O out here somewhere. But back in the late 80s, Kevin Wolf, who was really considered the founder of N Street, and some other people, his neighbors on one side, decided, let's start having dinners once a week at each other's houses. And by the way, they just got out of college. They were students at UC Davis. And then they said, okay, let's have dinners twice a week. And then let's tear down the fence between us. And before you know it, you know, more and more neighbors decided to do this, and they pulled down fences. So now there are 19 dwellings, 19 physical buildings that have fences torn out between them. Also, that common house there is a house that actually Kevin purchased, but he had the community sort of help him financially to do this. And that's where they have community meals. So they have common meals 3 or 4 times a week there. They have a common laundry facility, and the whole backyard is, you know, all the fences are pulled up, so they have, you know, a common trampoline, they have a chicken coop, they have a little pool, they have a play structure, they have all these things for the whole community to use. So what started out as, you know, 1,000 square foot houses or 1,200 square foot houses, now they've got a huge backyard. All of them have access to a huge backyard, and a very nice feeling when you're there of people just walking through the backyard, waving at each other. It's a place that I'd like to live in. It's too bad I don't want to live in Davis. There's a hot tub. This is a picture of the common house. So every night, actually every night they do it. I think it's 3 times a week. Every night they do it. It's a big event, preparing the meal. So meals are usually prepared by a couple families, 2 or 3 families. And then the meal itself, and then after the meal. So there's a TV room, there's a foosball table. They watch TV together. They play foosball together after dinner. They don't go into their little house and stay inside their house and just, you know, sit alone and watch TV all night. This picture happens to be a guy who I met, I don't remember his name, holding up the child of somebody else. These interactions of adults and children who aren't their own is very common at N Street. Adults really are sort of the surrogate parent for all the kids in the community, the ones who are involved. Here's an example. This is Lucy. Lucy, I met Lucy when she was about 1.5 years old, a little over a year old, back in, I think it was 2008. I was at a dinner in someone's house, because it wasn't the evening for a community dinner. Lucy was at the table in a high chair, and she's Chinese, and everybody else at the table is white. And I'm trying to figure out who her mom is or who her dad is, because everybody, one person gave her food, one other person, picked her up and put her in the seat, the child's seat. Then I finally figured out there's one woman who was feeding her, consistently feeding her. That must have been her mother. Her name was Rebecca. Well, a couple years later, Rebecca had adopted her in China. She's somebody who decided that she wasn't going to wait around to get married and have a child by that road, so she adopted a girl from China. Well, she had cancer. Her cancer relapsed and she died. Very sad. So here's Lucy. So what does N Street do? N Street, one family, Kevin Wolf, nominally, but really the whole community has adopted Lucy. So Lucy now is being taken one day a week by one dad to her Chinese class. Another day of the week, she's been taken by a single guy to her dance class. She's out and about, going to people's houses, knocking on doors, going inside, going in and out. She's essentially a child of the neighborhood. It's just a wonderful ending to a story that very often would be the opposite. Would very often be, she goes to foster homes, she might go back to China. Lord knows what would happen to her, because Rebecca did not have any family. She didn't have any family to give Lucy to, but in N Street pulled together and came together for Lucy. And she's a very cute kid, really fun. This picture would take a long time to explain. At N Street, they have a lot of indigenous culture, a lot of culture that they've made up on their own. One thing they have is, the thing that I think is most remarkable, is a coming of age ceremony for kids who reach 16 years of age. This is something they've made up totally. And the culmination of this ceremony is a burning boy or burning girl. So the kid turns 16, the kid makes this effigy of him or herself, and he puts little notes on that effigy, things that he or she would like to get rid of from his or her childhood. So, I don't know, things that, have bad habits, things that you don't want to remember, and then they have the ceremonial burning of the burning kid. They also have an event where the kid chooses, the community's going to do whatever I want to do. So kids have done like paintball. They've done two-hand tag football in their common area. They have a meal that everybody partakes in. It is their favorite meal that they want. It's kind of like a bar mitzvah, but it's all about the neighborhood. It's all about the community. And it's really a remarkable indigenous culture. So those are 5 communities. I lied because I'm trying to cut down on time. Now I'm going to give you my list of prescriptions, my list of recommendations that I normally would say to parents. These are things I think you ought to do, and there's a progression of them, to give your kids a life of neighborhood play. So I'm just going to dive in here. The first is move to a potential Playborhood. By the way, I didn't say this in the beginning. I talk fast, sorry. And I need to drink a little bit. But if you have any thoughts or questions, I know that's probably not the exact proper protocol, but slow me down, because I may get carried away here. I probably already am. I care about this a lot. What I mean here is, parents, don't pick up and move as soon as you walk out of the room here. But it is a fact that, statistically speaking, families with children move about every 6 years in the United States. So sometime between the time your first child is born and he or she is 12 years old, you're going to move twice on a statistical average. And so my message here is, when you move, when you decide to move, think about the neighborhood first. Prioritize the neighborhood first, because that's what matters to kids. And the truth is that most kids today don't talk about their neighborhood. They don't talk about their neighborhood as a priority because it stinks. But if you could find a great neighborhood for your kids, if parents could find great neighborhoods for the kids, they would want to go there. They don't know it. So we might say, well, if they don't know it, let's not tell them. Well, I beg to differ. So this is an advertisement for a Mountain View home. You know, actually, I do this presentation in other parts of the world, and the price is $750,000. I had to actually spend some time to find something that was so inexpensive, and usually when I show it somewhere else, they say, oh my God, $750,000. But, you know, look at the attributes of this place. So it's got updated kitchen with gas stove. It's got a fireplace. It's got dual pane windows. It's got freshly painted interior and exterior. It's got vaulted tongue and groove ceilings. Who gives a crap? I mean, from a kid's point of view, do they care? Does it matter? It means no difference to them at all. However, if you were to poll most families, pretty much almost every family, why are you moving? They would say something about it's for the kids, it's for my kids. And it's almost always, I hate to say, it's some veiled notion of what the kids want. What kids really want, if you can give it to them, is a wonderful life outside in the neighborhood. And this has nothing. This has nothing to do with what kids what would be valuable to kids to enjoy their neighborhood. So my basic recommendation, this is one of my favorite movies. I'm half Sicilian, so this is from The Godfather. And this is the scene where Michael Corleone goes back to Sicily and he meets this woman. He doesn't know how to talk to her, really. He doesn't talk to her very much, but he falls in love with her somehow. And then this is their date. This is their date. They're walking in the countryside. So they walk around the bend, and then the family comes behind. This is the way it is in a lot of traditional cultures, that when you get married, you marry the family. And I married a Chinese woman. I can tell you, I married the family. I see them every day, and it's great. But what I'm saying about moving is you need to think about marrying the neighborhood. You're not just buying a house. You're not just buying this physical asset. You're also marrying this place where your kids are going to be. So I have in my book, a book I'm writing, I've got this chapter written. I have a whole sort of methodology for choosing a house and choosing a neighborhood. These are the 6 key indicators of neighborhood potential. One is kids. And I remember when I was a kid, probably a lot of you have similar experiences, you knew the family was leaving, but you didn't know who was going to move in. No one tells you that. You know, we don't have a pipeline to the real estate agent. And so you see that moving truck come up. Moving truck pulls up. You run up to the moving truck, and what do you ask them? Are there any kids? That's the number 1 question. And then, what ages, boys or girls? That's all you want to know. You don't want to know what kind of couch they have, right? You want to know, are there kids there? So kids is the number 1 sort of raw material for children having a good neighborhood life. Secondly, outdoor life. You know, when you drive by this place, is there anybody outside? Look around. I mean, and I know it's just one data point, but if you go on a nice weekend afternoon, Sunday at 4 o'clock, Saturday at 4 o'clock, there's no one outside. To me, that's not very good. You know, and I live next to Atherton, and I can tell you, Atherton sucks because you never see anybody outside. Kid debris. This is kid debris. Kid debris. So there's not always going to be the kids outside, but are there sort of the remnants of kids? My mother was the neatest person you'll ever want to meet. I've come to admire messy families because I know that they live there. I like to see that. Calm streets, very important. I mean, I tell people up, down, and sideways, sacrifice a bedroom to get off of El Camino Real. Do not buy El Camino Real. Do not buy on a big street. Get off the big street, sacrifice the home size. You know, your kids will thank you for it. Walkability. By walkability, of course, we mean, can you walk to places that matter to kids? A retail store, a park, the neighborhood elementary school, the public school. I'm a big fan of neighborhood public schools. And good schools, by good schools, you know, I will concede that test scores matter, but what also matters is things like, do they have recess at the school? A surprising number of schools in the United States are eliminating recess or cutting down on recess, or they have no-touch recess, or they have no ball games recess, you know, all these ridiculous rules. Also, another criterion when my wife and I bought our house is, what kind of homework policy do they have? Homework has gotten out of control in elementary schools. There's never been a study done, that shows that there's a correlation between homework and academic achievement in elementary school. There's no correlation proven. Yet, homework is going up like crazy still. So our school, it rates very high on the test scores and on the API in Menlo Park. It's a very good school. has a lower no homework policy. That respects my family life. I appreciate that very much. I don't want my kid, no or low homework policy. No or low homework policy.
Well, I got it.
Okay, okay. So I could have said no homework policy, and some people say that. Actually, it's not exactly a no homework policy, but his message to teachers basically is, you will not assign homework every night as a matter of course. You assign homework if you happen to run out of time and you happen to need to assign homework. But as an everyday thing, you do not assign homework every night. So anyway, that's good schools. I'm going to move on. My third recommendation, make a neighborhood hangout. These are my boys. Actually, that's my son, oldest son Marco. That striped shirt is my middle son Nico, and some other neighborhood kids. Hangouts are sort of, or we call them, any of you heard the term third place? A third place? There's a sociologist, I forget his name, David Oldenburg, wrote a book called The Great Good Place. It's not a wonderful book, but he's got a great concept in there. It's one of these books, you just buy it for one chapter. The idea is that throughout human history, humans have always had these different sort of loci, places where they can get some social sustenance in their lives. So the first place is their home. That's where the family is. The second place is their school or their workplace. But through history, people have had a third place. And on TV, it's Cheers, or it could be, the cafe where you know people, you see people you like. Unfortunately, the physical third place has sort of fallen off in Western society. We don't really have a place where we can go and just show up and see people we like and talk to them for an hour or two. So what do? Well, kids, go to Facebook. Yes?
On that last slide, you make those pieces?
No, it's called Slotwood. Slotwood. Slotwood.com. And I did a search on life-size Lincoln Logs in Google, and that was the second hit. And it's been a wonderful thing. It's really, really good. So these days, kids really like Hangouts because they're very, especially as they get to be 9, 10, into the teen years, they're very socially motivated. They're very interested in what other kids are doing and talking to other kids and seeing them. They hang out online. That's what they do. They go to MySpace. Well, they used to go to MySpace. Now they go to Facebook. Now you're actually going to be legally allowed to go when you're less than 13. I'm not upset about that, but I just think we need to create neighborhood hangouts, physical hangouts for kids where they want to be. And that's what I've done with my yard, and that's what a lot of other people have done. So I have 5 characteristics of kid hangouts. One is, there's got to be fun for multiple ages. Kids are motivated by fun. They want to do fun things. So, and also what is fun for a 3-year-old is different than what is fun for a 7-year-old or a 10-year-old. And I've got a whole list of things about what is fun for different ages. Comfortable. Kids, even kids who are running around all the time, they want to sit down sometimes. And if they want to sit down, you don't want them to go somewhere else, you want them to be there. But also, if kids are being accompanied by a parent, if a parent's taking a kid and there's a sandbox there, and there's nowhere to sit, the parent's going to stand there for about 5 minutes, then she's going to look at her watch, she's going to say, let's get out of here. But if she's got a chair, if she's got someone else to talk to, they could be there for an hour or two. Visible. It's got to be, we've got to demonstrate, we've got to show people that this is what we're doing, that this is a way of life that we want other people to participate in. So it needs to be visible. It has to be accessible. People have to be able to come there. So this is live in place. Obviously very visible and accessible. And there's got to be critical mass. There's got to be enough stuff there so they don't get bored. I mean, if there's just one little play slide or one swing, they'll like it for a week or two and then they'll get tired of it. There needs to be enough stuff going on, just like a playground, that a lot of kids are going to come on a regular basis. My next recommendation is to keep preschoolers' lives simple. This is my oldest son when he was about, 3 months old. The idea here is that human beings have evolved for thousands of years, hundreds of thousands of years, I guess maybe a million. I'm not really good with what is it, paleontology or anthropology. But we've evolved for a long time without all these electronic gadgets, without cars. And all of a sudden, these things come into our lives in the last 50, 100 years, or in the case of the internet, 15 years. And now we're changing kids' lives totally. Well, we've evolved to interact with the physical world. We've evolved to see and to touch and to smell and to feel and to move. That's what kids need to do when they're young. They don't need electronic gadgets. They don't need television. They don't need to be in a car seat being driven around for an hour a day. That's not what they need. They need to be walking around physically engaging in the environment. So I have a couple of prescriptions. One is, everybody agrees with this usually, don't permit excessive screen time. It's not good. Secondly, don't drive when you can walk or bike. It's remarkable the different experience you have. Think about it, when you drive kids in a car, there's a definite power dynamic that goes on. Children in a car are sitting in a car seat, they're strapped in, they have no control over what's going on, absolutely no control. And they're usually staring at the back of someone's head. That's the experience of driving in a car. And by the way, it's the least safe thing that a kid can do in a day, being driven in a car. Statistically, off the charts, way more kids die in auto accidents than any other way. So walk or bike. When they're walking or when they're biking, they're peers with their parents. They're doing the same thing their parents are doing. And so they have as much control over what's going on as parents do. And to parents' chagrin, sometimes they have too much control because the kid will wander off and start picking flowers or throwing a ball or doing something else. But fundamentally, it's an egalitarian situation when kids are walking or biking with parents. When they're driving in a car, it's parents exerting total control over children. It's not good for the kids. Manage screen time tightly. I put Beaver up here because, we laugh at Beaver. Boy, this kid was out and about on his own. I mean, this is a good show for me to show my kids, hey, this is what I think your life ought to be like. This is what we want to model. And when I mean manage their screen time tightly, I mean, most parents, they let their kids sit in front of the television for hours, but when they're playing, they're hovering over them. We do the opposite. When kids are in front of a screen, which actually doesn't happen very often in my house, I got the control the whole time. And we don't watch live TV in our house. We play DVDs, we play stuff from iTunes. We're stopping and starting and explaining. But when they're playing, they're on their own. And have family dinners every night. I think a lot of people know about this. This is the one time every day for families to check in, for people to talk about their day, to talk about what's going on, what matters to them in their lives. My fourth recommendation, make a village. This is Jacob, the boy from Lyman Place that I mentioned before. And this is one of his relatives. I'm not sure if this guy is a grandfather or an uncle, but Jacob is definitely living in the village is raising Jacob. This is Marco's village. So Marco is my oldest son. He's almost 7. And this is our neighborhood. I've made up last names. Sarah's going to look at this and try to figure out who I'm talking about here. My point here is that this is Marco's neighborhood. Marco's neighborhood is not, our neighborhood's called Allied Arts. That's way too big. Marco's neighborhood is the area that he can independently roam to on his own. And these are his markers. His markers are the houses of people he knows. The white houses are houses of adults that don't have kids. The darker houses are houses of families with kids that he knows. And then there's the creek over here, and he goes down to the creek. This is his area where he can roam on his own. He feels safe, we feel safe. It's actually kind of remarkable for a family in 2011 to say we let our 60-year-old do this, but it's wonderful, it's safe, it's very comfortable, and he's building independence skills, self-reliance skills that a lot of kids graduating from high school don't have. Because we're nurturing this in him. We're actually incrementally giving him more independence and teaching him how to be independent in the world. And he's not out for more than an hour or two at a time. Here's some ideas for making a village. Run a neighborhood summer camp, something that I've done the last 2 years. I'm doing this summer. Sarah's daughter will be there this summer. It's a chance for us to pull kids together and try to get them to be comfortable with each other, get them to get used to the idea of playing together. And my objective in my neighborhood summer camp is to back off and to see if this can be something more organic that will go on after the summer camp. Walk and bike in your neighborhood, play with your kids in your yard or street. We don't play in our backyard a lot when we don't have people around. We're out in front. We're playing, we're doing things in the street, we're doing things in the front yard so that other people will come over and play with us. And it happens almost every night. And we knock on neighbors' doors. How are we doing on time? Okay, I'm going to move ahead to my fourth recommendation, encourage self-reliance. This is a screenshot from another one of my favorite movies. Anybody recognize? Stand By Me? Kind of remarkable to think of what these kids did. It was a true story. Stephen King wrote it. Probably autobiographical. It was, I think, about, the setting was the late 50s in Oregon. But it's remarkable to me how much children today lack, teens especially, lack self-reliance. I'll tell you a quick little anecdote. I was at the bike shop close to my neighborhood, a place that I can walk to. And I bike all the time during the week. And I was in line to get my bike repaired. Ahead of me was this tall boy, he must have been 6'2". I'm sure he was at least 16, he's probably 17 or 18 years old, holding his bike, and there's a woman there, his mother. His mother said every word. What was wrong with the bike? She negotiated when the repair would be done, what the repair would be, how much it would cost, when they would pick it up. Now, I guess this was perfectly normal and natural to the mother and son. To me, it was appalling. I don't have kids this age, but this is the norm today, that children are not taking their own bike to the bike shop. They're not asking for the repair themselves. They're not paying money out of their own pocket. They're not making decisions in life. And so what we have is, there we go, another movie, Wayne's World. We've got a crisis. Have you guys heard of the term emerging adulthood? The psychology profession has come up with a new term and a new stage of life called emerging adulthood to capture the stage in life in the 20s where people get out of high school, get out of college, and don't know how to handle adult responsibilities. And it's become such a large phenomenon in our society that we try to capture with a new stage of life. So Erik Erikson's 7 stages of life, these guys propose that it be 8. It's a real problem. Depression among young adults is at epidemic levels. Children are not, they're living at home, they're going back to their home, living with their parents, not because they love their parents so much, but because they can't stand on their own 2 feet financially, and they can't wash their own clothes and cook their own dinners and things like that. It's a big issue because kids are not being raised to be self-reliant in their preteen and teen years. When they get into their 20s, they have the existential crisis, and it's not fun. Like I said, there's an epidemic of depression among kids in their 20s, and actually in teens as well. Okay. So parents, when I say I want kids to be self-reliant, parents are spending more time with their children than ever before. I think that's good. By the way, it's amazing. Even mothers spend more time with their kids than they did decades ago because they're not doing as much housework, they're not cooking as much, they're sacrificing in other ways. They're working more, but they're also spending more time with their kids. I think that's good, but I think the parents should remain involved, but they should step aside. They should figure out a way to facilitate children's lives rather than controlling from above. And this is obviously a much larger conversation, but it's something I think is very important. So some ideas for helping, and I'm talking about now kids getting into their tween years, into their teen years, how to help them gain self-reliance. Teach kids to pick up sports games. Kind of sad that kids don't know how to get together and put together their own game of basketball, put together their own game of softball. They don't know how to do it. So that's something that with my 6.5-year-old, who's almost 7, he's starting to play pickup street hockey. That's a really important skill, and it's a lot of great things you learn when you play pickup sports. Make kids do chores. Statistics show, there aren't very good statistics, that far less time is being spent by most kids it's 0, doing chores around the house. These are responsibilities that teach kids that they are not just takers in the house, but they are also people who are participating in the life of their homes. Help kids find a job, start a business. Now, finding a job is harder than it used to be for kids. We have all these unpaid internships, which is really exciting because you don't get paid. And you find out that your employers may not value your work very much. But what about delivering the newspaper, cutting the grass? As it turns out, there are still some ways to start a business. Helping kids do that, I actually write about this in my book. Some people are doing this. Establish a neighborhood nature hangout, which I talked about before. For us, it's our creek. And encourage independent roaming. And that's actually the topic of the last section, which I call Let Them Roam with Mobile Phones. This is a depiction of 4 generations in Sheffield, England, of a family. The upper left is the son today, who's allowed to roam 300 yards to the end of a street. These are all 8-year-olds. By the way, 300 feet is a lot. In the United States, the average is 30 feet. In other words, the average is to the boundaries of your yard. That's as far as most kids in the United States can roam on their own. But here's the great-grandfather could roam 6 miles to go fishing. So roaming has diminished significantly in America up until today, over the past few decades. Well, it turns out that mobile phones are the key to independence of children. Mobile phones, I mean, we decry them, we criticize them like crazy. Mobile phones, according to a Pew study, the Pew Center for Study of the Internet, says that 94% of teenagers believe their mobile phone, their number one function of their mobile phone is to give them independence from their parents. That's a good thing in my book. Now, it comes at a cost. There's a tether there. Parents want to be in touch with their kids while they're out of the house. But better they be in touch with this tether over the wireless wave than be inside the house, the way I look at it. Another thing is that study also showed that mobile phones promote parent-child intimacy. Parents and children actually feel that their mobile phones enable them to be more intimate, not just check-in conversations, but real conversations. So I think, on the whole, mobile phones can be a good thing for children. So I recommend that your parents give their children a mobile phone early. And let me say this. If we could go back to the 1950s when we didn't have internet and television, who knows, or the 40s or 30s, maybe we'd do that. That's not an option. We have technology that's staying here. The question for parents is, what technologies do we adopt? What technologies do we embrace? Because if we say no, no, no to everything, you know, parents, the kids are going to think we're losers, right? I mean, kids, they want to do something. They want to go on the internet. They want to play video games. I think mobile phones are a good thing to the extent they promote independence in children. Oh, and by the way, yeah, use a headphone, use a headset, do the safe things with phones. As it turns out, kids are using phones, and adults are using phones more and more for the internet and for the network features rather than voice. And make it a smartphone. Now, smartphones are fairly expensive now. They're going to crash down in price over the next couple years. GPS is really the key in my book. Because with GPS, kids can come to navigate their own world and be experts. Just think with how great kids are in navigating World of Warcraft and how great they are in navigating Super Mario's world. No, that's an old one, but all these different worlds. If they had Google Maps and they knew how to use it, they would know your neighborhood. They would know your city way better than adults would. They're really good at that stuff. Why not let them do that? Now, you know, mobile phones aren't great, so I advocate that parents prohibit or limit use of mobile phones in the home. Not at the dinner table, no way. Not in the bedroom. It wakes up kids a lot of times, and they actually have trouble sleeping because they're responding to text through the night. And roadways. You know, have strict rules. But I think if you can have those rules, I think mobile phones are a good thing. And my concluding slide, this is me in Times Square a couple years ago playing a game with mobile phones. There's a new genre of games called location-based games, or there's other names for it. We were playing a cops and robbers game. It was called Paparazzi. And that guy there, he's on my team. He's got a red tiara around his neck, and he's the celebrity. And that's me and that woman there. We're his entourage. And we're a team, and there are other teams running around Times Square, and they're trying to take his picture, and we're trying to block them. And I got to tell you, we learned more about Times Square. We became, you know, the common conception, actually the common result of using digital devices like mobile phones is that you tune out the world. You have no idea what's going on in the world around you. But with GPS and location-based applications, location-based games, we became hyper-aware of what was going on in the world. Because we're looking at this phone and we're looking around trying to figure out where the people are who are trying to take his picture. And we're running around. We got to know the buildings. I mean, it's really, I think, a pathway to actually a positive use of mobile technology that GPS is inviting, because GPS is enabling us to actually be really immersed in the world like never before. So that's my hopeful note to end this. My voice is hoarse, but thank you. And I'd love to hear questions and thoughts and comments. Thank you. I timed out, sorry.
Are games like this on your website?
I have a couple articles, but it's really bleeding edge. There's a site called, what's it called? comeoutandplay.org. And they have a festival every summer. And I think it's about to happen in New York City. I was at Come Out and Play. And there's a few games. There's one called Seek and Spell, which I have on my phone. Seek and Spell, just briefly, is a bunch of people to get together. You get a map, a satellite map of your little area on your phone, and then letters fall from heaven. And then you start the game, and everybody has to run to get to that letter first. And then you collect letters and you spell words. And so, you got a cell phone. You're running around, and you're discovering the area where you are. Seek and Spell is a really fun game. It's a sort of a bleeding edge area that I think is going to become pretty big in a couple years. Very cool. Other thoughts, questions, reactions? Yes?
So one thing that I kept thinking about during the presentation was Michelle Obama's Get Out and Move campaign. How do you see that? That's more really based on schools, but also for families. So how do you see all this?
I'm glad, if I had to flip a coin, I'd say I'm glad that she's doing it. I'm disappointed that it's about school. It's only about schools and only about physical education. I'm also interested in, actually, kids spend more time out of school than they spend in school. And most of the time they're in school, they're there to learn, not to have recess, although I think recess is important. So I think by far the most important neglected area of childhood is what happens after school, at home. And as far as physical education goes and physical fitness, I think it's important, but what we're neglecting is mental health, emotional health. And I didn't talk about this, but depression in the 20s, it filters all the way down to the childhood years. There's an epidemic of depression in childhood. There's huge problems with other emotional issues and attention deficit. And there's also problems of kids not being self-reliant, kids not having creativity. That's outside of physical fitness. So I'm glad she's doing what she's doing, but I think it's pretty narrow. It's too narrowly focused, in my opinion. Well, thank you. And please talk to me or send me email or whatever. Actually, I'll send you there's my email address, playborhood.com. Thanks.